I just received a text from Jared, and he spelt your name right.
Really?
Jared doesn't spell anything right.
That's
And
crazy.
he spelled that right?
Jared can't even. His
'cause he
name
cares.
is spelled weird.
Can Jared read?
If you didn't know, Grayson's spelling of his name is very odd.
Spell it.
And Graesen. But Michael has a
Sounds like
friend that
Alphabet
for the
song.
longest time called him Garrison.
Yeah.
Not to me, though, ever.
But
He never
like-
said
He
my
said
name
he
in
did.
front of me.
He
So
said
he said
did.
he's called you
But
that
he
to
probably
your
has.
face. But he was at my house.
I probably responded to
this friend was at my house and referenced Grayson because Grayson has sold him shoes in the past, and he goes, "Oh, that reminds me, I need to talk to Garrison." And I don't know a Garrison, but he said it to me with such like conviction in his voice, confidence in his voice. He was like, "Garrison, you know Garrison," and I was like, "No, I don't know Garrison."
Do you
bro.
mean Grayson?
No, I was like,
It's exactly how
I was
Michael
like,
said that.
Grayson.
Too.
He goes, "His name's Grayson." He's like, "I've been calling him Garrison for years."
Yeah, he really probably has said that to me, and I've just never.
I was like,
corrected
"You're
him.
sure you're talking about the same guy? You used to drive the big purple truck." Everything. He was like, "Yeah, that guy. I've been calling him Garrison for years."
It's okay. We also have friends who got married a couple years ago, and the year before they got married, and it's one of their best friends, his wife, he was calling her the wrong name too for like a year and a half.
Yeah, he was calling our buddy's wife the wrong name for a good long while.
And she never corrected him though either.
And was shocked when I corrected him. Shocked. Absolutely. He thought I was messing with him. And I was like, "No, that's not her name, bro."
When the internship started last year, for the first day I called Jared Jordan. I was fully convinced that was his name. I was calling it to him to his face, and he goes, "Hey, before we get any farther into this thing, I just want to let you know, my name is not Jordan." I was like, "Man, I feel so bad." He was one of the first interns, and I got it wrong. He goes,
There were only
"It's
3.
Jared." Huh?
There were only 3.
I know. And I knew 2 of them. I knew Canada and Connor.
Welcome to ClearCut Podcast. I am not sure what episode it is, 30-something.
It'll say it in the thumbnail.
It will. Hope everybody's doing well on this beautiful Thanksgiving week. Thanksgiving is tomorrow, if you're watching this the day it comes out.
Crazy.
We have with us, as always, Tyke and myself, but we also have Michael Reese, the pastor of the Young Adults Ministry at Connection Point Church, and his wife, Bethany Reese. And let's just jump right into it. I just want to hear y'all's story together, kind of like from the beginning, and then just how life,
Like
So
our
cute.
relationship.
Yep.
Like
how did y'all meet? Let's just start with that. How did y'all get together?
Well.
Let's see.
Swiping right.
Let's see if he
Just
does it
kidding.
right.
We met at church.
We met at church.
Not this church, a different church.
Coincidentally, in our old young adults ministry, you guys know Pastor Jonathan, the student pastor at CPC. He and I have been friends for a long time. He was going to this church, this previous church as well, and we got put in charge of some missions trips that summer because our young adults pastor actually got diagnosed with cancer that year. He is fine now. He has recovered. But during that time, a lot of us on the leadership team had to like kind of step up and be in different roles. So he and I were in charge of making sure these missions trips ran smoothly. Bethany had come to that ministry a little bit, or maybe you hadn't actually come yet.
I had
right?
been coming for like a few months because I was living in Perryville at the time, but I didn't have a lot of community there, so I was driving. They had moved the service time up, so I could actually come.
So were you already working in Perryville at the time?
Yes, I was working at Perryville, or in Perryville. And so I was driving. It was Monday night service, and so I was driving to that ministry every Monday night. But they had moved it up an hour, so I could. Previously, I had been too late, and I just wasn't going to be taking that drive. So I'd been coming a few months, and there were 2 missions trips. On one of them, 2 spots had opened up because the pastor and his wife couldn't go. Yeah. And one of the girls that I had met in a small group texted me and asked if I wanted to take the spot going on the trip. So I said yes, even though I didn't know that many people, but I wanted to get more connected. Yeah. And then I didn't know this, but Michael and Jonathan were in charge.
Oh no.
Yeah, of figuring out names and organizing everything. No one knew anything about me. No one thought to ask the girl that invited me because no one knew that, but no one knew how old I was, what I did, he didn't know what I looked like. Like,
Bro,
they just saw my name.
So we had to go through, one of the responsibilities we had was to go through both rosters for both trips and make sure that everyone had been contacted and everybody knew all the information. And we're looking through these rosters, and in this ministry that we were part of, you feel like you know pretty much most people, especially if you're in leadership. You've just had a lot of conversations.
Especially the ones going on a mission trip. They're probably the
Yes.
ones more
a
involved.
little more connected, all of that. So we get, she's literally the last name on the list because her maiden name is Vance. So she's like the last person. And we get to it, and he's like, bro, who is this? And I was like, I don't know. I've never even seen that name in my life. I have no idea who Bethany Vance is.
Yeah.
I'm like trying to I'm racking my brain, like trying to think through who are the people that I kind of talked to but have never really had. Just nothing's ringing a bell. Couldn't find her. Didn't know who she was. Looked her up on Facebook. Didn't recognize her. I'm going
That was
around.
cute though.
I ain't gonna lie. Boy, I had at that point I was like, man, she all right now. So I started I'm asking around because, like she said, she didn't know that many people. I'm asking other people at church, like, hey, does anybody know who this person is? Is she gonna be here this week so we can give her, this packet or this information or whatever? Nobody knows who she is, bro. Not a single soul that I spoke to had any clue. I was like, how did she even get on the list? I'm thinking at this point, is it a mistake? Has she even? I couldn't even prove that she had been to a service at this point. Like it was incredible.
But we figured it out, and so I went on the trip. He did not go on that trip.
I went on the other trip.
Yeah.
She went on.
That's actually how I really met Jonathan and Jordan, was on that trip. They had just started dating, and
So that's how we kind of found out that each other existed.
that's not true. I knew. I was at the
Okay.
message.
That's how I found out that
Yes.
you existed.
Yes.
Okay.
I had seen him speak at that ministry.
So basically, she was there. I spoke at that ministry probably 6 weeks after my mom passed away, and was speaking about that experience. So she remembers seeing me there, but I didn't meet her. So that's how I found out who she was. And we always kind of I would see her around and stuff, and I was obviously I thought she was cute, but I didn't pursue anything because at that point in my life I was just kind of focused on doing my own thing.
Right.
And found out well after the fact that she was very much trying to
Orchestrate
make things happen.
conversations. Orchestrate
And-
conversations. I think that's
And me being a 20-something-year-old clueless male, I picked up on zero of it. Just none of it. I didn't pick up a single hint, bro. She came up and invited me to Applebee's because at that time, everybody kind of just went to Applebee's after church. We would just
like the
go.
only thing open.
It was the
Yeah.
only thing
Yeah.
open. It's a Monday night, so we would
They have
go.
big tables.
It was fairly
Um,
close.
Yeah, it's fairly close to where we were. But I thought she was just asking me because a big group of people was going, and she was just trying to see who all was going. I didn't know she was asking me specifically if I was going. So I was like, yeah, of course I'm going. Everybody goes. And then we wind up sitting next to each other. And we wound up talking. And I remember leaving, and I was like, she's really cool.
I got him to do some personality tests that
Yeah.
night.
Oh, okay.
We were talking about
Yeah.
it at the table.
How's that for ice breaking? I did a Myers-Briggs test at Applebee's over some boneless
at
wings.
11 p.m.
11 p.m. And I still walked away and was like, she's cool. So we had to have hit it off because there's nobody else that could do that
Yeah.
and actually be smooth. You know what I mean?
man.
So
Yeah.
but still had no idea that she thought of me as potentially more than a friend. And literally it took one of my boys we were sitting, because at that time that church had 2 services, and a lot of us young adults would go to the second service and sit together, and then after service we'd wind up sitting in the lobby. We'd all be talking and stuff, and I noticed that like she would always come say goodbye, but I thought she was saying goodbye to the whole group because I'm not paying attention. I'm in a conversation and we're talking about sports or whatever we're talking about, and one day she came up and she touched like the back of my arm and she was like, "Bye, Michael." And I was like, "Peace out. I hope you had a good experience at the church service." And she walks away, and I look up, and one of my really close friends, his name is Ben. He looked at me. He was like, "Bro." I was like, "What?" And I looked up and like several of my boys were looking at me, and I was like, "What?" And they was like, she comes up and says bye to you every week. I was like, "She says bye to everybody," and they were like, "No, she does not. She's never said bye to any of us except you. She walks over here every week and says goodbye to you." And that was the first time that I was like, "Oh, okay."
But what really started it, we had a conversation at that. I was training to be on the Greek team.
Okay.
And so I was there early, and he was always there early because he did everything for that ministry. He was always
I didn't
doing
do
something.
everything, but I was pretty busy.
Did. And
I wouldn't say that, but it's okay.
we were talking, and our conversation got interrupted because I had to go learn whatever it was I was learning, and he had to go put chairs up or something. So I messaged him that next day and said, "I'm sorry, our conversation got
Slid
interrupted."
into your boys' DMs.
Sure did.
Which again, I thought was an innocent move. I thought it was
a serious conversation.
Yeah.
So like it was appropriate. Like I was just like, "Hey, I'm sorry that's happening. Like, I'm sorry we got interrupted. Like I do want to hear about it."
But I thought she was just being a nice person, and then
and then I didn't go away.
We never stopped. So even when I got like cold feet, got a little scared, and tried to make the situation stop, she was immovable. She was not going nowhere. And then it just all clicked, and it was like, "Oh, I think I would like to spend the rest of my life with this person."
Oh, man.
Yeah, we didn't know. We knew pretty quick.
We knew pretty
like,
fast.
It took us a while to officially like get together because we knew if we did, that was like it.
That's what I was gonna say. Like when I say I got like cold feet and got scared, it was mostly because, not even mostly, it was pretty much entirely because I knew in my head, I was like, I'm gonna take a huge jump here, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for it, especially at that age, at that point in my life.
Neither of us had been like dating recently, or like it had been, for me, it had been years since I had been in a relationship. We were 26 when we met.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of transition and moves and things like that, and I just wasn't in a place to really date. And he had been single for a while, so it just wasn't even really on our radar to like know that was about to happen.
And then I mean, she just like, once it hit me, and I was like, "Oh man, like I don't know if I wasn't unsure about her. I was unsure about me." Like, she's awesome.
Right.
I felt like I'm gonna mess this up. She's too good for me. I'm gonna do something dumb.
Get that.
Yeah. So I was so scared because I was like, I don't want to wind up hurting her because of my perceived inefficiencies or shortcomings or all these things.
Yep.
But to that, we didn't we took our time. Like we dated for 2 years, even though we knew when we got together, like this is it for the long haul. We waited. We made sure we were in a place to where we could, because neither of us, I think, were ready.
Yeah, I didn't have a. I mean, I had stable income, but not the kind of job I wanted to like start a family with and stuff like that. And so, like, I wanted to make sure that I was able to, provide for her and be the husband that I knew she deserved. And I didn't feel like I could do some of those things at that point. And I credit her for being just so patient and waiting through that season with me and helping me in a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways that like there were some things that I just didn't know how to do, just without getting into a lot of it, just some stuff with us coming from different family backgrounds, different environments. There was some stuff that like I wanted to go back to school. For one, like I didn't know the first thing about how to do that because I had racked up some student debt from the first time I was in college, didn't know how to deal with it, didn't have the means to deal with it, and she is a high school counselor, and so she understands kind of that system, the education world a little bit. She was able to walk me through some things that I was like, oh, okay, this makes more sense, and I think this is an achievable thing. So like that's the kind of stuff I mean. Like I knew like there was some things I needed to check off my own, just my personal list, and she was instrumental in that and helping me grow in that regard. And just kind of that's part another reason I knew like okay, this is real, because you got to have a person in your life, you know, when it comes to your partner who you're going to spend the rest of your life with. It's got to be somebody that you guys get together and there's growth that happens through that. It's somebody that's willing to be there with you in the hard times and root you on through those times, be your cheerleader, be your guide, and be, you know, a help. And that's really what she was to me, especially in that season. She still is very much that to me today. But in that season, it's so awesome because she didn't have to. She didn't have to do that. She could have been like, bro, figure it out. Like, you're a grown man, figure it out. And she would have been completely justified to do that. But she looked at it and said, you know what, I can help you figure it out. We can get to this together. And that meant the world to me.
So let's jump to the next part of this.
I'm sorry, we're both long-winded. I apologize.
No, you're fine.
It's
you
mostly
can cut
me.
anything out.
It's
You need
mostly
to.
me.
This is a big turn. I mean,
Oh no.
What?
well, I mean, it is. It goes from that to this. I mean, we skip a lot. But you get married. You come to CPC. You get on staff at CPC.
Correct.
And then, boom, you're actually the pastor of the young adults ministry, which kind of was the whole time. But
Yeah.
to what it is now, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And then something happens in your life that was totally unexpected.
Yeah.
If you
I
want to
didn't
jump
know
into
where we were
that,
going.
We got a puppy.
Okay,
And
wait.
the-
Can I
His name
can
is
I just
Monty.
say that I think it's very ironic that you were on the leadership team at that other young adults ministry, and the pastor got diagnosed with
Yeah.
cancer.
Yeah.
and you had to step it up, and yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
So no, that
so
is
I was
interesting.
going to ask kind of your part of the story, and then go into kind of what you talked about to us last night, because I thought that was really good. And then I just want to go from like just your experience,
Bethany's
'cause
point
it
of
was
view.
very,
Yeah.
very
For sure,
different,
for sure.
obviously.
And I say that sometimes when people talk about, oh, this thing that you went through, it's like we went
Yeah.
through that, you know, because that was as hard a time in her life as it has been for mine, from a different perspective, obviously, because she doesn't have to go through the recovery process and things like that. But being there and having to see that, like I tell her all the time, I don't know that I could have handled this the way that she handled it. But what Grayson is referring to is I had a medical emergency over the summer. Basically, I was diabetic and I didn't know it. Diabetes does run in my family, but I had not been diagnosed with it yet. And something happened and my blood sugar got very, very high, and I got very, very sick. And it began to shut down organs in my body. And so I got to a place where I was so sick that I basically couldn't move. I was lethargic, couldn't talk. The weird part of that is I am giving you that information from a secondhand perspective because I don't remember any of it. I was completely out of it. I woke up in the hospital. I don't remember getting loaded into the ambulance. I don't remember anything. I don't remember the several weeks prior to that. There were days that I came to work and I was apparently not feeling well and was telling people I didn't feel well. I don't remember any of it. I was in meetings that I don't remember. I have none of it. Like, not even a little. So, I woke up in the hospital. The last thing that I remembered was watching a movie with my wife, which was several weeks before this happened. I remember that night going to bed. And then I had a dream that my wife, my best friend, and I were going to a hospital to like play some sort of prank or do something silly. I don't remember exactly what it was in the dream, but it was something that was supposed to be silly. Because I remember in the dream we're all laughing and having a good time and being silly. So we go into the hospital and we're like running around and just kind of like messing with stuff and making each other laugh. And then all of a sudden, I turn around in the dream in the hospital and there's nobody there. Like the hallways are completely empty. There's no noise. There's no doctors. There, like previously in the dream, there were like doctors running around and stuff trying to stop us from being silly. I turn around and everything's gone. It's just completely empty. And I start trying to run through these hallways and find a way out, and I can't get anywhere. And I finally get to these doors, these glass doors, and I can see in the dream, I can see my wife and my best friend standing there, and they're crying and I'm crying and I can't get to them. And I'm trying to figure out what happened. And I'm like, hey guys, the door is locked. I can't get out. I can't get out. What's happening? And they aren't coming to me, but I'm trying to get to the door through the door and I can't. And then I wake up and I'm in a mostly dark room. I can't move. I start to look around and I can see like the machines in the hospital room, and I gather, okay, I'm in a hospital. I think this might still be the dream. But, you start kind of moving around, and what I could feel, because I couldn't really feel my legs very well, I could feel that I was tied to the bed, because apparently the tube that was down my throat that was helping me breathe, I guess while I was sedated, I had been trying to like rip it out. So they tied my arms to the bed so I would stop doing that. So I couldn't move my arms, I could barely move my legs, and I couldn't talk. But I'm looking around the room and I'm starting to panic at this point because I don't know what's happening. I can see a clock on the wall that told me it was about 3 a.m. And I'm seeing all these like machines. I'm seeing like these lights and these things like buzzing. I'm starting to kind of hear it too, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. When I kind of get to the point where I realize, oh, I'm in a hospital, then I start to worry because the last thing I remember is being with my wife. So I'm trying to figure out, like, did we go somewhere and get in an accident? Where is she? Because I at that point, I don't know where my wife is. I don't know if she knows I'm here. I don't know if she's hurt. I know nothing. And so at that point, I'm trying to like make some noise, get somebody to notice me from somewhere. The machines are starting to make more noise because I guess my heart rate's going up at this point. So a nurse comes in. Her name's Katie. We're Facebook friends now because I had to track her down because she really helped me in this moment. Katie, if you're watching, God bless you. You're the best. She kind of kneeled down close to my face, and she saw how worried I was and scared. Obviously, anybody would be scared in that situation. And she starts kind of explaining where I'm at and what's been going on. And she says, "Hey, your blood sugar got really high. Um, you went into something called diabetic ketoacidosis, which means basically like organs started shutting down." She's like, "You're very sick. You've been here for around 3 weeks. You have a lot of infections. You're fighting for your life, but it's getting better." And she, through a lot of me grunting and trying to make noise, she figured out that I was also trying to figure out where my wife was. She said, "Your wife is safe," which was the most relieving thing to hear in that moment. Because like as scary as that was, like I wasn't even worried about me. Like she was telling me what was going on, and I'm like, fine, cool, I'll handle that. Where's my wife? That's all I wanted to know. So she told me Bethany is okay. She had to go home for a little bit to get some sleep. She'll be back in a few hours. That was all I needed to know. So I kind of just like sat back and went to sleep for a little bit. When I woke up, Bethany was there, and the doctors were kind of explaining to me more of what was going on and what happened, and kind of the road to recovery we were going to have to go through. Diet change, lifestyle change, rehab, because when you're in the hospital that long, you lose a lot of muscle mass. And so my body just was not ready to do anything. So I had to relearn how to walk. I had to just kind of relearn how to do anything, everything. I had to learn how to shower again. Like I couldn't do anything on my own for a long time. And then I also had to take speech therapy because the tube has to go between your vocal cords. So my vocal cords got very stretched out and very damaged. I'm still very much dealing with the ramifications of that. But I went from not being able to talk at all, and they couldn't even promise me that my voice was going to come back, to now I can talk, but it hurts. Even this right now, the longer I talk, the more I can feel it. But I wanted to touch on, before I turn it over to Bethany, you talked about the irony of being in a young adults ministry where the pastor got sick, and now being a young adults pastor and getting sick. That's one of the reasons, and you guys, Grayson and Tyke are both on our leadership team for the young adults ministry at our church. And you guys have heard me say this, but that's part of why I have such an appreciation. I already appreciated our team very much, and I've always been a big supporter of our young adults leadership team. But to see the way not only our church as a whole rallied around me and rallied around my wife and helped us, but the way that our young adults team handled being in that position and helping keep this ministry run, and Jared Brooks as well, who's on staff. He came and kind of filled in while I was gone. But to see how awesome that this team did, and to hear, like, people were coming and visiting me all the time and telling me, "Hey, your team's crushing it. Your team's crushing it." And I knew you guys would. I love it, but I also, like, it's special to me because I know how hard that is. I know how hard it is when you're working so hard at something and you care about it. Because when you're serving in ministry, at least it should be, it's because you care about it. It's close to your heart and it matters to you. And I know what it's like to be there and be working that hard and then watch your leader go down. That when I was serving in a young adult ministry and saw that happen, at that time was one of the hardest seasons of my life, because you're dealing with this pressure of I need to be here and keep this thing going.
Yep.
And these people that are coming every week still need, what we are supplying them with, what they're getting from the Lord in this moment. Like, I still got to do this, but I'm watching somebody I care about really go through something, and that's tough. And it's tough to go in every week and have that smile on your face when you're worried, and every time you're there, you're thinking, you're like, man, I wish my pastor was here. I wish he was okay. I wish, you know what I'm saying? And it's hard. So I understood from a unique position what you guys were going through, and it made me, like, I prayed for you guys every day. I know you guys were praying for me. I prayed for you guys every day because I know how tough that is, and I'm so appreciative to any of our leadership that's watching, or any of our CPC family that rallied around us. I mean, I can't thank y'all enough.
I thought it was super interesting to look back, to see how God was orchestrating things before you got sick.
Yeah.
Because I think I came up to you like a week or maybe 2 weeks, but I feel like it was a lot closer than just saying, "Hey, I think I want to get involved and like help out with social media and stuff like that."
Yeah.
Just to, like, because once you got sick, then it's like, boom, you would have had to figure out, like, who am I going to ask to do that? Not saying it's that big of a deal, but it's just cool to see a small part of, like, God working in that, to where it's like, well, we were going to talk about what to do, but I guess I'm just going to go ahead and do it. But it was at least already, the conversation was had to where it's like, okay, I'm going to step up. I'm going to try and handle this.
Because I had already, like, given you the password.
Yeah,
and
like,
stuff
seriously,
like that.
not that long before all of this happened.
And I guess
the
you
2
remember
weeks,
that. You remember giving him the passwords and everything. Do you remember
I
having that
don't
conversation?
remember it, but I assumed I did.
It seriously
Okay,
was,
so
like,
within that
within
time.
the
It was.
last
And-
week.
Well,
of all
now
that.
I know that it happened because I can see the text messages. That was a weird part of the situation too. Was like going back and, like, reading old conversations and stuff. But yeah, I pieced that together that he had the passwords.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the 2 weeks of when it happened in the middle of June. We had already planned out, and he wasn't supposed to speak anyway.
Yep.
You were speaking, Tyke, and then we had a worship night planned.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we didn't even have to think about
those first 2 weeks.
those first 2 weeks until, we didn't have to think about a plan until after he was already awake.
Yeah, that's
Man.
exactly what we were
Yep.
thinking as a leadership team too. Because like you said, I had the week and then we had the night of worship. And then the next week, it was one of those things like the week before, we were going to have small groups the following week, the third week.
Yes.
And then I made the decision the week before. I was like, let's just have small groups during service because then we don't have to figure out someone to come in and speak. And then we'll figure it out. That gives us another week to try to figure out a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely pre-planned,
Uh-huh.
And even the addition of Jared. Jared, because for me, and I've said this to him too, there's not another person that was more perfect for that role in that time, because he had really just recently at that point started like coming around. He came through our internship program, CPLC, and but Jared and I have been friends since high school. And we've always been, since then, been in each other's lives. We had really reconnected since he had started coming to CPC, and that closeness was still just as strong. And so he understands my heart. He understands. We had talked already even about what the young adults ministry kind of meant to me personally, and some of what my vision was for the future of the ministry and things like that. And so even him being asked to step in for those few months, it was one of those things where when I did wake up and I was caught up to everything that was going on, because honestly, this might be hard to even fathom at when you hear about what was all going on with me. But just like I said, the first thing on my mind really when I woke up, other than where am I, was where's my wife? The first worry that I had was you guys, was the young adults ministry, was what's happening? Are they just shutting us down?
And you woke up on a Sunday, so you're like, what's happening tonight?
Right now.
He was like, what day is it?
I was like, get me
What's
out.
happening with 411?
set up a computer and I'll, you know what I'm saying? Like, we'll get this tube out and I'll preach, I'll whisper.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Because I was worried about you guys. I wanted this to still be okay. And so when I was told, I think it was Pastor Kevin that told me that Jared would be, it was either Kevin or Chris, told me Jared would be stepping in. Not only was I able to like, okay, the team, we put this team together the way that it's put together for a reason. I would always say to you guys that the reason I wanted you to be so like, tapped into your jobs was if something happens to me, I want this thing to be able to continue running, right? I would always say that. So I knew you guys are going to be fine, and there's a leader here. There's someone leading it right now that I have full trust in, full 100%. I know him. He knows me. I knew he wasn't going to come in and like, blow everything up. Like I had confidence in him and in you guys that I don't have to worry about young adults right now. I can let that ride. It's going to be great. And then I can step back into it and we'll just continue where we left off.
I just remembered that although you guys had that conversation, Grayson was not officially on leadership team.
No, not yet.
And like that's crazy to me because, okay, you guys, we know as leaders of a ministry, as pastors, that it's not just, it's usually not just us running the ministry, it's us and our wives. Now, I felt like in that season we became Jared's wives, and because he was here.
Wow.
Sorry, Kayla.
He was here during the day, and we were talking about what to do.
That was going.
And so I felt like
wow.
we were figuring up like how we were going to plan out everything, because you had the sermon series, you had the message series, but it was fruits of the Spirit. And Jared, I remember him saying, I don't know how this man was going to speak on every fruit of the Spirit because there's so many of them, and some of them are the same. And so we were talking like during the week about how the service was going to flow and everything we were going to do. That was like stepping into that, and even Grayson stepping into that, just like not even officially being on the leadership team, was like, wow, we're really going to do this. Like we're really going to do this, and we're really doing this.
Like the moment, that's all me. I'm a 7. I'm a 7.1. I'm like, give it to me, bro.
Yeah.
Like I don't need the details. You just tell me what you need, and I'm doing it. Like this is what we gotta do. That's what we're gonna do.
That's how awesome it was how God orchestrated all that
Mhm.
because the right people were in the right place at the right time. So even though this
Definitely.
season caught us off guard, it didn't catch God off guard.
Yes.
Right.
You know, and that's such a cool thing. Like now I mean, obviously there's still a lot of recovery that's happening. I'm in physical therapy 3 times a week. There's a lot of things that we're still figuring out, but being relatively on the other side of this thing, it's really cool to be able to look back and see all the things that God did. And there's a lot of times where you can view it as a frustration or a setback, and then there's times where it does feel like that. I'm not going to lie to you. There's been some dark days in this, but at the end of the day, we got to see God do a miracle. There's no other way to describe this. This is a miracle. Not only just what happened in me physically, but just the way that it brought us together, the way that it was able to be handled, the way that it was all mapped out. That's God.
Yeah.
That's not me. That's not her. That's not you guys. That's God. And that's so cool to have gotten to see that happen. But babe, why don't you talk a little bit about
Yeah, rest your vocal cords.
kind of
bro.
what it was like?
But yeah, just
Drink some
just your
water.
side of things. I know
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
very different experience, scary experience,
Yeah, well-
lonely experience, I'm sure. Well, I know there was probably a lot of people surrounding you, but
Well,
you walked
so
in your house and
yeah,
wasn't there.
yeah. So my that it was a Friday, and like you said, he had been sick all week. We kind of thought it was the flu, but he had been getting sicker and sicker and refusing. He doesn't remember this, but refusing to let me go take him to the doctor
Mhm.
or anything like that. Which should have pushed a little more, but you know how it is. Like you
Yeah.
Now
can't
you
really-
know.
Yeah. So
Sorry about that.
yeah. So Friday like evening, he got to a point where he like couldn't move, couldn't get up, couldn't get out of bed. And I can't help him, so I called his friend to come over and just see, because I was like, I don't know, I need a second like opinion on what to do. And he got there and was like, we probably need to call the ambulance. And so we did, and went to the ER. And what's crazy is that friend couldn't even come in with me because the hospital was on lockdown because there had been shootings outside of the hospital.
Oh, wow.
Like within the hour that we got there. So and the ER was like dead empty. I don't know if you've ever seen an ER empty, but it's creepy. Especially at night, and then especially when you're already freaked out because you don't know what's going on with him. And it actually took a while to get them to even leave the ambulance from in front of our house because he was fighting so hard against
Wow.
the needles and getting like all this stuff, because he was so out of it. He didn't know how badly he needed help. So we get to the ER. I have to go in by myself. Our friend leaves. My mom is on her way, but is not able to come in either. And it's like probably 11 by the time we get to the hospital. And so I called Miss Lisa, actually, our lead pastor's wife, and she's on staff as well, to let her know what was going on. And she like prayed with me and, calmed down too. Helped calm me down because I was just in this back waiting room by myself.
Yeah.
And they were great. They were coming in, bringing me water or whatever I needed, but it was definitely like, because I had no idea what was going on or how serious it was. They came and got me to see him before he was sedated, but right after they had intubated, which was to help him breathe, because they knew they were sedating him. And I kind of, in the moment, was like, why did you bring me back here? But I understand now. And so then they got him settled, and around 1:30 a.m. is when they let my mom come back in too. So then I wasn't by myself. And then around 3:30 is when he went to the ICU. And we went in there for a little bit after he got settled, and there was a nurse, Charity, if you ever watched this, that was very, very kind, but very blunt with how serious of a condition he was in, because I just didn't know, and we didn't have answers then either. They were just like, he's in a very, very serious condition. And so we had to leave. So the ICU waiting, or the ICU visitation hours are very strict for a reason, and it's honestly mostly for the families. It's not so much for the patients and the nurses, because that's just part of their job. They deal with it, but it's for the families. So like, we did. My mom was like, I think we need to go home. You need to like shower, change clothes, all this stuff, and then we'll come back in the morning. And so those first 3 days were very like touch and go, very up and down. I didn't know this until well after the fact, but there was a crash cart next to his bed those first 3 days, because they didn't expect him to make it. And then they didn't tell me that though, so also appreciate that. I don't know how I would have handled that. So I just the whole time, I never like doubted that he was gonna make it. Like there was never like, I think that was just God, or I don't know, whatever stubbornness I have in my own brain, but I never doubted that he was gonna come out of it. But he did for a little bit just keep getting sicker. He got a fever that first week that just wouldn't go down. They had to put this huge cooling blanket on him that I still kind of wish I could have at my house. But it was just ice. It was like ice, basically, they had to lay across him. And there was one night, I guess, where it was just really, really bad. And his fever was like 105 and wouldn't go down. And all of that, just with all the complications. He had a line that got infected that was why caused that. And there was just a lot. But there was never a day where there weren't people with me, which was really appreciated. And I didn't know, because I was just going like, all right, this is what's happening, this is what I have to do. In my head, I was like, if I break down, this doesn't help. I cannot do anything to help this situation if I'm unable to cope. And I've kind of always had that kind of mentality, like I'm just going to do it because I have to. Like, this is where I'm at. This is what I got to do. But people from the church were there. I know you guys came. I think the Monday after he was in the hospital, about a bunch of elders and staff from church came, and we had like 30 people in the waiting room.
That Monday blew my mind when I saw you.
Yeah, it was very difficult because I had never seen anyone in an emergency room, let alone in the ICU.
And I just saw you, and I was just like, because I hadn't seen you yet, I was like, maybe it's not that bad, because she's a rock star, bro.
Dude,
I mean, I was just like,
I'm telling
I was
you.
like, I think I would be in worse. Like, if that was my wife in there, I think I'd be losing my mind.
Yeah.
Like, which I'm sure she was losing her mind, but like no one saw it.
Yeah.
And just, it blew my mind. I was like,
No, I tell her all the time.
she looks like she's showered. She's not wearing pajamas. Like, I'm like, she's.
Yeah.
I tell her all the time,
Well,
like if the
she's
roles
there
were
for it.
reversed, I don't think I could have done. Because I mean, when I did wake up, and we got to the hospital room and all that stuff, and I saw her, and I saw the way she was. I mean, she did everything. Like, she was talking to the nurses for me. She was dealing with that, so I wouldn't have to. She was just, every time I needed her, she was there, and I never saw her. You couldn't see her sweat, and I was just like, there were times I'd be like, how is she doing this? Because I want to lose my mind right now.
Yeah.
How is she? And it's a testament to, number one, God, obviously, because we can't do any of this without him, but just like the character that she has, and just the it is such a relieving thing to have someone who, when the winds and waves of life come, doesn't move. She's steady. She stays. Because it's like, we could have panicked right there. We could have lost it. And I probably would have, if it wasn't for being able to look at her and her tell me, hey, we're going to make it. You woke up. That's already like you know what I mean? And it's like, just to have that there.
And like I said, when I was talking about those like waiting room hours or visitation hours for the ICU, that helped. Like there was a 12-hour block where I couldn't be back there. Yep. And we live close enough to the hospital that it was like, I'm not going to, first of all, the ICU waiting room is a difficult place to be in because of everyone in there is dealing with a very, very sick family member. So that wasn't, I felt like I was crawling out of my skin sitting in that room.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do it. And so that 12-hour block was just, it was good to go home. I told him this, I don't even know if you remember now, but I couldn't go to our room. Like, I couldn't sleep in our bed.
I was actually thinking about that.
So I slept on the couch. Which we have a nice couch and it's very comfortable. So that helps.
And we had like just gotten it.
Right, like a month before.
Well, God.
Look at that.
But no, I couldn't go sleep in the room. So I did sleep on the couch, and my mom would stay sometimes, but that first night I was like, I need to be like by myself. I need to process this. I need to breathe for a second. And so she stayed with me a few times, and then, I would stay by myself, but that was 8 days. He was in the ICU for 8 days, or 10 days. He was sedated for 8. He was awake the last 2. And so, actually, and this is going to sound really intuitive, but, it was harder for me after he woke up, because I saw how much he was struggling mentally with, which any of us would, being confined to a hospital bed, not being able to move, not being able to roll over without help, not having any say or control over what's going on. So every time there was like an upgrade or a good positive thing, and we moved rooms, like graduated out of the ICU and went to a private room. The private room was a lot harder than the ICU because people weren't there 24/7. Like, it took 20 minutes sometimes to get a nurse to come to the room just because of how busy they are.
Yeah.
So I did have to learn how to do a lot of things. And yeah, neither of us slept well for the whole, and it's just it was harder watching the ups and downs, like harder watching him deal with it for me than like when he was sedated and I could fully just trust the nurses. Like, they know what they're doing. I'm not a medical professional. I learned a lot. I know what a lot of machines are now and what a lot of medications are now that I didn't know. I know why his memory is the way it is because of the sedatives he was on. I can tell you all about them if you ever need to know. But it was just watching that was a lot harder. And he doesn't remember all of this, but he did say, like, I did have moments in the hospital where I didn't hold it together. But in those moments, it wasn't because of him, or it was just lack of sleep, stress, all of
Everything.
that affecting me at the same time. And so it was, those were moments where we actually could feel that together, which I think helped.
Yeah.
Not one of us being upset and,
Yeah, I think I've said this in a lot of private conversations, but I don't know that I've ever really said it like publicly. People, especially after I got out of the hospital, would ask, like, every time somebody sees me now, they're like, how's it going? How are you doing? Are you getting stronger? Are you this or that? Like, oh, you're walking better, all this stuff. Or they'll ask, how are you doing this? How are you? The physical part is really not that hard. It is to a degree. Like, I'm always sore. I'm always like, I can't feel my feet sometimes, and I have to figure out how to walk across the room when you can't feel anything from your ankles down. It's really difficult. Yeah. But like the hard part, the mental struggle of it was 10 times harder.
Yep.
That's the part that's tough.
And now.
Yeah. But because when you wake up and you find all that stuff out, and there is nothing you can do about it.
Right.
It's not a situation I asked to be in. It's not something I saw coming, and it's something I can't do anything about. It's just there. I'm just in this moment. This is just happening. You have to process that you almost died, that whatever's going on with me right now, I'm likely going to have to deal with the rest of my life. I can't do anything on my own at that point couldn't do anything on my own, like she was saying. So like, and not to be like, but like as a man, to have to need help for everything. I couldn't shower by myself. I couldn't do anything alone. I couldn't put my shoes and socks on by myself. I couldn't get up and take a step.
Yeah.
That was hard. And to have to battle back from that every single day, it's draining. It's draining emotionally, it's draining physically, it's draining mentally.
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing. That's what you have to fight through every day. So as she was alluding to, there were several days in the hospital, especially, that I just like I couldn't wrap my mind around what was going on.
Yep.
And it was just that's the darkness. That's the dark part of it, is that everything just feels like it's such a battle, it's such a struggle. People are in and out of your room all the time. You have no say in anything for the most part. I hate needles and constantly being stuck with needles, constantly being put in these machines and these and then you think that I'm going to go home and everything's going to be better. And to a degree, yes, it was better to be at home and to be with my wife and to be, in our living room. But I was still stuck at home.
Yep.
I couldn't do anything for 2 months. I couldn't be here. I couldn't go do my job. And I love what I do. I love ministry. I love our young adults. Not being able to do that, not being able to speak, not being able to, I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then when I was slowly able, because then you start thinking, okay, well, when I can get back to work, things will be fine. And then you get back to work, but it's not the same.
Yep.
It's not the same. I can't do as much. I couldn't do as much as I wanted to do. I couldn't do certain things without needing help. And it was, I don't like to say it, but the truth is, it was embarrassing. I didn't want people to see me like that. Like I was, there was part of me that was glad that people came to see me in the hospital, like the huge part of me. And I'm forever thankful. Like when the leadership team, when y'all came, I cried so hard when y'all left because I was so just glad to see y'all. And it meant the world to me. But at the same time, it was so embarrassing. Yeah. I'm not talking about you guys, but I'm just saying, like, in general, for people to see me like that and for people to see me struggling, and see that it was hard for me to get around at 32, 33 years old. That was hard. And it was very, just mentally just tough because I felt like this is going to be forever. Like, it's hard to not, it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And that was the mental battle to fight. And it's even harder when you're on the other side of something miraculous, because part of me felt guilty for even feeling that way. How could I be upset right now when God just did something? I shouldn't even be alive.
Wow.
Like I had a blood infection that my doctor, my like primary care doctor that I have now, when he was looking through my chart and he was familiarizing himself on our first appointment, he was seeing what all I had. There's a specific infection in there that he literally looked at me and was like, wow. And I was like, what? And he was like, that's nearly insurvivable. He was like, people don't make it back from that. So like, I shouldn't be here, bro. Like,
let alone walking.
Right.
And so
and
there was
doing
this part of me
Preaching.
that
life things.
Yeah.
there was this part of me that felt guilty for being angry.
Yeah.
Because I don't even have to be here, but there's still nevertheless is this part of me that like that I don't know if you call it pride or whatever, but there was something in me that's like, I hate being looked at like this. I hate people worrying about me and kind of holding their breath every time I walk across the room. I see it. Everybody's trying to act like I don't see. I see it. Like, you know what I'm saying? And obviously now, like we're months in. I'm getting a lot stronger. I'm feeling a lot better. There's not much that I can't do anymore. Some things take a little more effort, but I can pretty much do everything I want to do. But yeah, that in the beginning, that was really the mental struggle of it was really hard.
I remember getting the message the morning after on the all staff group chat, and yes, I felt for you and I prayed for you in that moment, but I felt for Bethany more.
Yeah.
I felt bad for Bethany more because Bethany works in the school system.
Yeah.
She gets summers off.
Right.
Yeah.
I was
And
thinking
this was
like
the middle
I
of
was-
June,
Yeah, I was
so
like,
I'd just gotten off. Yeah.
what? Like they had. I know they had plans this summer. I know they had plans to be with each other and maybe like take a break and get away. But now they can't. Now Bethany, like she doesn't have to work, but she's worried constantly.
Yeah.
I was last thing, and then we can wrap it up. But I was actually, I kind of got angry at God, and it wasn't for Michael being sick, but I was angry because I think one of my spiritual gifts that I absolutely love the most is giving. And financially, I couldn't really do that anymore. So I was angry because there's been a couple times, but this one was like the biggest in my life where I was like, why can't I still make the amount of money I was like a year ago just to like completely bless your life, right? Like, and I was mad because I couldn't do that. It's like I can go just like everybody else and I'm praying or here's a $20 gift card, but it's like, but what is that really,
Yeah.
Prayer's huge, obviously, but like something that just completely changed someone's life is like I can't do that anymore, and that made me super angry.
Yeah.
Um,
But what you and all you guys in our leadership team and our CPC family did for us, taking care of the ministry. You know what I'm saying? Like that meant so much more. Like the money, the gifts, the whatever, that's cool. We appreciate everything that everyone did for us.
Yeah.
Like, people went above and beyond.
Yeah.
But don't think that you guys did it bless us in a lot of ways. To just, like I said, to just know that this thing that we care about so much was still in good hands. Because that was another, like, talking about, being sitting at home for months. I wanted to be here so bad because I care about this. And we were just kind of hitting our stride and things were going so well. And so then to have to be on the sidelines for that was really tough, but it was made a little bit easier knowing that we had people like our team in place and everyone was doing so well. And yeah, there was the struggle of even coming back. It was still hard and I'm still figuring a lot of it out. There was a lot of stuff that I had to kind of like reprocess, I guess, as I was coming back. But it was the way that things were taken care of over the summer even made it easier for me to step back into it because I wasn't stepping back into chaos. I was stepping into this is still running very smoothly. And Bethany, even though I did very much ruin your summer, and I've apologized profusely for that, even from the hospital bed. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the only carefree month of the year that you have, and here I am almost croaking. You know what I mean? But we do have a nice puppy named Monty now,
Yes,
and he
yes,
is
yes.
a sorry for ruining your summer present. I was in the hospital bed and I rolled over. She was pretty much always in this chair next to my bed, this recliner. And I rolled over and I just looked at her. She goes, "What?" And I was like, "I owe you something. I owe you something. Like, I messed up your whole summer. You can name literally anything, and I got you." And we'd been talking about getting a pet for a long time. I was always a little bit reluctant because pets can be messy, and I like our space to be, But she goes, "I want a puppy," and at that point, can't say no. Like there's not a no. She could have said anything, and I'd had to make it happen. And then we found out that Kyle, our worship pastor at the church, they were having puppies, and so we got one of those. And look, we got our cool little boxer puppy running around the house now. So that's the real silver lining to this situation.
well, first off, praise God.
Yes.
Secondly, thank you for coming on here, opening up. I know it's not
Secondly.
easy, and I
Starting
know
in Pastor Chris.
Yep.
what.
Secondly,
Secondly is not actually a word.
Dang.
wow.
You got to quit hanging out with that dude.
Chris, he says that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
He
yeah.
about to
only
bust
one.
out
Do I look like
he
him?
about to bust out a listen here. In a
Do I look
second.
like him? All right, listen. But no, I appreciate you guys for opening up, being on here. I'm sure you've said the story a lot and everything, but we appreciate it. And
Yes.
I hope you all took something away. Even if you didn't, just the main thing
Yeah, the
here is
story of it.
the fact that they're saying praise God and
Yeah.
still giving God the glory for something
For sure.
that was probably one of the worst things in life that could have happened
It was pretty wild.
to somebody. But you're
Yeah.
still thanking and praising God through it all,
Yeah.
so that's pretty cool.
100%.
And now you guys finally get that break.
Yeah.
Yes. Now we get a break.
Yep.
We are going to be unreachable this week because this is Wednesday, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't try to text us. We won't.
Yep.
We will not answer.
Well, enjoy your mini vacation. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. We appreciate y'all, and we'll see you next week. Peace.